Even the stablecoin issuers are speculative attacking the dollar. This is the Hail Mary can kick down the road to buy the US dollar in several more decades, maybe, of time, but ultimately everyone flocks to Bitcoin. However, for the time being, having global fiat melt in other countries while the United States takes this pro-stablecoin, pro-Bitcoin approach, it's ultimately good for American citizens, for stablecoins, and it's good for Bitcoin. And so
how do you perceive this push for more stablecoin issuers in a regulated fashion? Do you have worries about leaning into a quasi CBDC through these mechanisms, or do you think that this is actually a positive thing? So whoever wants to dive in first, if you've got any thoughts here.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start here. I did a couple videos and a big write-up on the Genius Act, and I love talking about it. One thing I will say to preface is that in the United States, Republicans have control now. They've got all of Congress. They've got the House and the Senate and the executive branch. And what do they continue to do? They continue to shoot themselves in the foot. It really is quite remarkable. You know, time and again, this is sort of what they do. So what I'll say about the Genius Act is that it doesn't have this provision in it that outright bans CBDCs. But the idea that there is this layered allowance for a CBDC to be created is not true. At least the one that they voted on. The big benefit of the Genius Act to me is that, like, right now, stablecoins are largely offshore. You know, you have these stablecoin issuers who are operating largely offshore. However, they do, you know, back themselves with U.S. treasuries, right? There is something to the tune of, you know, $500 billion in overseas stablecoins, if not a little bit more, that we don't know whether or not they are actually backing themselves by U.S. treasuries, right? And so bringing that into the United States, that'll make it so stablecoins are safer for people. And, you know, saying safer in the sense that, meaning you'll know as a consumer it's backed by, you know, a dollar, right? This stable coin is backed by one equivalent unit of either a dollar or a U.S. Treasury, right? An equivalent unit of a U.S. Treasury. And so that's good. And then the other thing is that that'll bring all of that, like creating this act in order to try to foster innovation and kind of drive stablecoin usage in the United States. That's also great for the dollar, which is great for Bitcoin. It kind of seems strange in a little bit of a roundabout way, but stablecoins are a huge way in which people buy Bitcoin. It's one of Bitcoin's biggest on-ramps. The United States is the most free and open capital markets globally. And so, you know, allowing, basically fostering that innovation, trying to draw that stablecoin, you know, creation into the United States, onshoring it. It's operating offshore now. It means that it's good for consumers, but it's also good for long-term dollar demand. And it's great for Bitcoin, right? And so, you know, I've said for a long time, and then I'll give up the mic. I think the Genius Act it's a good thing. I'm happy that it's moving through, and you know, they still have to do one or two more votes on it, I believe. I think it's just one, and then it reaches the president's desk. I'm happy it's going through, but I've said for a while that the Bitcoin and the dollar are not necessarily competitors as much as they are complementary to each other, right? That's not to say one day Bitcoin won't totally usurp the role that the dollar and U.S. treasuries currently play. That's certainly on the horizon, right? You know, for 10, 20, 50, 60, 70 years from now. However, for the time being, having global fiat melt in other countries, while the United States takes this pro-stablecoin, pro-Bitcoin approach, it's ultimately good for American citizens. It's good for stablecoins, and it's good for Bitcoin. And so that's where my head's at. I frankly don't know why the Republicans do this time and again. You know, I voted for Trump, right? You know, I'll say it. I've tweeted about it before. And it's like, this is the mandate. This is what he was asked to do. And then all of a sudden, the people who are in office who are supposed to be executing that mandate aren't doing it. So it's frustrating. They can't get out of their own way sometimes, but that's what I'll say there.
Let me break this down for my fellow Bitcoiners. In just 8 weeks, I've seen a serious shift. More strength, more energy, and fast muscle gains. The reason? FITSCRIPT. They ran 124 biomarkers, blood, hormones, inflammation, and built a fully custom plan: nutrition, training, supplements. No guesswork, no templates. This is functional medicine meets precision fitness for high-performing men who want sovereignty over their health. If you care about optimization the way you care about your money, test, don't guess. Don't trust, verify. Hit the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to check out FITSCRIPT and see what's possible. You opted out of the broken financial system by adopting Bitcoin and taking self-custody of your money. But protecting your wealth is only part of the equation. Now it's time to protect your freedom. My family is stacking sats and stacking flags. A second passport is our hedge against government overreach and uncertainty. If you're a Bitcoiner looking for your exit strategy, our friends at Citizen X will help you secure second citizenship through investment or descent. Book your free call today by hitting the link in the show notes or simply scanning the QR code on the screen. Is this the final long bomb kick of the can down the road to like drive additional demand for the dollar? Like just, you know, like make it so that anybody anywhere on the planet can get access to dollars. So why use their own currency, pump up demand for treasuries? But is it also potentially the nail in the coffin at some point in the future? Because as with Tether, they've been, you know, taking in dollars, using them to, you know, peg to the stablecoin, but holding treasuries, making a percentage back on those, and then using the proceeds of that to then stack Bitcoin with the profits. Yeah. Is that a gradual melting there?
It is. So I like the way you phrased it. This is like the Hail Mary can kick, ideally several years, hopefully decades into the future. What it will do is it'll make it so that like these stablecoins are going to increase the global velocity of the dollar, right? So the dollar will be faster, more people will use it globally. And in doing so, it'll inject this treasury demand at scale. But also what Tether is doing is just like you said, right? They're using proceeds, whatever spread they have, to buy Bitcoin. And so even the stablecoin issuers are speculative attacking the dollar. We do it at an individual level. We have anyone who has a mortgage is speculative attacking the dollar. You didn't pay off your house. You're buying Bitcoin with your freed up cash instead. So we're all speculatively attacking the dollar at the individual level. Corporations are now doing it. And now for the United States, in order to kind of entrench this demand for decades to come, I mean, it's already pretty entrenched. Now it's just, you know, there won't be another successful currency. Like the United States dollar will be the last one to die, essentially. So it's kind of a funny situation. You described it perfectly. This is the Hail Mary can kick down the road to buy the US dollar a couple more decades, several more decades, maybe of time. But ultimately, everyone flocks to Bitcoin, right? It's a strange situation we find ourselves in.
Leon, I want to go to you and get any of your thoughts that you may have on the situation too, and then I'll go to Tom.
Yeah, so I'd agree that Bitcoin doesn't need laws and regulation to function. If there would have been a law to stop Bitcoin, it would have not worked. But the regulation helps, especially when you look at housing. Dual collateralizing real estate and housing, for example, is not possible if the regulatory framework doesn't exist. So I think that in order to see the positive secondary order effects of Bitcoin, especially on housing, in order to lift some of the pressure of the housing market that exists right now, because people need to invest into housing to outperform inflation, to lift that pressure off, I think regulation is very, very helpful. So I see this as a step forwards to create guidance and a legal framework for entrepreneurs to operate in. So that's a net positive.
Awesome. Tom, I'll go to you as well. Thoughts around kind of this frenzy of activity we're seeing in and around the U.S. Trying to regulate and proliferate stable coins and its effect on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I guess I'm torn. First of all, I'm battling internet here, Ben. So if you got to kick me off, kick me off. But I think I got it sorted. Yeah, okay. I'm torn because I think, like, I agree with what Joe's saying. I like what Leon said there. It takes some pressure from the real estate market, because when we have regulations, we can now use some of this stuff to our advantage. But I want to see Bitcoin adoption purely. So I look at this as a long-term distraction. I can see some of my friends getting distracted, talk about stablecoin issuance, takes the conversation a little bit away from Bitcoin, delays the inevitable. So personally, I think I'm not, I just see it like a system dying, clawing, like you said, Ben, at the last straw, Hail Mary attempt to keep things going. Of course, this was going to happen. I'm not too excited about it. I think what I saw, did something get passed in that act? You guys probably know better than I do. where they're now, some of the banks in the US are going to be forced to look at Bitcoin as actual collateral to qualify for lending and that kind of thing. Was that also in there? I thought I just saw that before jumping on here.
I
No?
knew something about it. Joe, you might know better than me.
So I didn't see that ruling. The most recent thing I can think of as far as Bitcoin as collateral goes, was the FHFA ruling, which wasn't that Bitcoin can be used as collateral for a mortgage, but that it can be used as an asset during loan qualification for a mortgage. Like people wouldn't need to sell their
Right.
BTC. It would count as an asset. However, banks are moving in that direction. Like JP Morgan, I think a month or two ago, was talking about allowing Bitcoin to be posted as collateral for some of their clients. However, it was, via ETFs, but either way, it's a step in the right direction because that's Bitcoin's ultimate role, right? It's pristine collateral. It's the rails that underlie the entire financial system. The market just hasn't caught on yet.
Hey, you. Yes, you watching the Bitcoin price movements and the latest exciting news. It's awesome to stay informed, but the real power of Bitcoin comes from taking control. Don't just watch, take action. Head over to btcsessions.ca/learn for free step-by-step tutorials that guide you through every major skill you need to know, plus full video playlists for deeper dives on any topic you like. And if you're ready for the ultimate fast track, scroll to the bottom and check out bitcoinmentor.io for premium one-on-one experience with my team of Bitcoin experts to ensure you get it right the first time. Don't wait. Secure your Bitcoin future today. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen.